Hello, y'all whale fetuses. It's Whale Fetus United. We're back again with another video or audio clip, depends. Today I'm gonna be making a podcast style thing. It's called Questions and Quandaries, in which I will discuss and answer in the best way I can, informative questions of deep thought. And hopefully, by doing this, I can drive intellectual discussion and other stuff as well. So, for my first question, I'm going to try to answer is what makes someone American? Now, there's an obvious route for this answer. You can look at the legality of it. Legally, a person could be American, or illegally, they cannot be American. That leads to the rise of debates of illegal immigrants and legal immigrants. But there's also the idea that people can be American based on the ideas they hold close to them, like concepts of freedom or uh, patriotism and love for a country that protects people in the same way that they'd like to protect their people. Being American means many things as well, other than what I just mentioned. It could also be one standing up for equality and equity for all. Uh, Being American could also mean many other things, but we're going to be discussing how Americans are groovy and this greatness we associate with Americans often leads to people, including myself, as I'm an American, hold standards and the people of America to a very high, stature, for which I evaluate them. Uh, this is another thing we can think of when we consider someone to be American who isn't American yet. We can consider their achievements, how they forward or progress and harness what we know as the American dream. And the American dream, of course, is the idea that you come here with little to nothing. I mean, here as in America, the great United States of America, and you can essentially reach success as a immigrant, or even born here into squalor, still reach the peaks of Washington and even New York. It's a very great place. I haven't lived there, but I assume it is a great place. Oh, this is a doozy. And so those are my thoughts. That one, I guess. There's many aspects to what makes a person American. Legality, the thoughts of that they hold dear, the ideals, the concepts of freedom and whatnot. Yeah, so hope that drives some thought. My next question / quandary that I will discuss is the question is water wet? Now, although this question seems to rise from jokesters and whatnot, it has very deep roots that we can find in intellectual and rational thought. Is water wet? Like, we often think the wet is when something is overlaid or glazed in liquid, usually water. But can water be wet? Is what this question is asking. Now, what is wet? Wet often refers to what I just said. Uh, I think water can be wet, as although water is known to cause wetness by being laid on other things, it can also be the root of those attributes itself. As for example, we use a towel to dry things, but when a towel is not drying other things, it's dry itself. So, if we use that logic, we assert that water isn't just like a towel, although it causes the attribute of wetness. It can be wet itself, just as a towel, although since it causes the attribute of dryness, it can be dry itself. And it's a very great question because it drives great debate between two sides, the spectrum of philosophical thought, and overall it's great. Although it seems as a joke, and oftentimes is a joke, because it seems as a question that is dumb or can be easily ignored or brushed off because people usually obviously think like, oh, it's obviously wet, or no, it's obviously dry. But in reality, it's one of those very great questions that necessitate a lot of thought in your brain and whatnot. So, next question I got here is could the Spartans beat the Romans? Now, of course, we all know the Romans and we all know the Spartans. Spartans are the main characters, or I mean, the main people who are portrayed in the movie 300, directed by Zack Snyder. But the Spartans, due to that movie, have gained near godlike status and essentially grounded themselves into the ethereal greatness that we consider military history today. And because of that, we hold them very highly often in reference to other military great great military leaders and peoples that have exhibited exceptional aspects of military excellence, like the Romans. And many people believe that the Spartans could defeat the Romans, despite the Romans beating them in real life. The series of Greco-Roman wars, of course. Uh, the Romans, in my opinion, would definitely be able to defeat the Spartans. For example, they had superior technology. The Spartans were using bronze while the Romans were using iron. And there's no doubt that iron could completely obliterate bronze without like any doubt. And other than its superior technology, what have the Romans conquered that the Spartans have? I mean, what have the Spartans conquered that the Romans have not? The Romans spread their domain and culture across a lot of Europe, Africa, and Asia, spanning 3 continents, while Spartans were basically held all in Greece, which is like an extremely small country today. And just to imagine that they didn't even occupy the entire country, just a little section of islands and Mycenae and whatnot. It's very unimpressive. And if you expect, or if anyone expects, the Spartans to be able to overcome the military might that's held within the Romans and their tactics, they're they're delusional, of course, in my opinion. You could put your opinion down in the comments. Also, the, the Romans' tactics were simply better in every single like meaning of the word. For example, the Spartans, they use a phalanx as we've seen in the movie 300. It's a great film, in my opinion. You may disagree with that assertion, but I believe that it was a great film and pretty groovy. And in that, they stand side by side, uh, putting their shield at the forefront in order to protect from arrows or oncoming cavalry and whatnot. But this is great for defense, but and oftentimes offense as well. But the Romans used this, and they found a lot of success spreading their reaches into much of central Italy and northern Italy. But that's when they found much more, what do you call it, resistance. They found people who were used to fighting in the mountains, in which the phalanx could simply not be used because it would have to be disassembled and put together like a Lego set. You know, you drop a Lego set, or just put it back together. That's what like the phalanx crossing the mountains is. While after that, the Romans, they developed much better tactics. They were more fluid. They had the disposables in the front line holding it, and while archers were back or cavalry were on the flank. Many of these tactics were not used by the Spartans because oftentimes they were on the defense, as we see in 300, and the cavalry of the Spartans would be able. The cavalry of the Romans would decimate the defenses of the Spartans. They would simply be able to go round and outflank them before they could move. The reason we see in 300 the Spartans find so much success is because they're in a tight area by which they cannot be outflanked. And people oftentimes forget the situation by which combat width of the opponents of the Spartans were limited, while the Romans could find almost any terrain and still right flank, I believe. He had his right flank bordered by the river. I forgot which river. And on the other side, he had a substantial amount of cavalry, and that cavalry was supposed to be a success because of his battle. They were supposed to be the prize, winning the prestige of defeating the great Julius Caesar, of course. But as they engaged in the battle, and success, it's similar to when Pompey tried to face off against Julius Caesar. He covered the cavalry, of course. They left Pompey because, well, they didn't leave. They chased after some infantry that belonged to Julius Caesar, and they were baited into a trap. They were completely decimated because they had left away from the safe holdings of Pompey's army and had gone too far, and they were able to be encircled and crushed, cut off from all communication with Pompey. And because of that, Pompey, he was not able to recuperate in time because he did not know that his cavalry had left and been encircled and decimated, eradicated by Julius Caesar's infantry. And as the battle went on, Julius Caesar's army approached and completely destroyed the army of Pompey and his own cavalry, and enveloped, and as well as his infantry, enveloped and ended up encircling and destroying Pompey's army. And that is a great example of how situational the Spartans were. Like the Romans. In that situation, the Spartans could be Pompeii, even though they had a great uh, chance to defend. They had great terrain that was favorable to the defender, sorry. They still lost. I mean, Pompey still lost, and similar to what I believe would be the outcome of a Spartan versus Roman battle. And that's why I believe that the Romans would completely defeat the Spartans, despite the pop culture aura that surrounds the Spartan people. And yeah, so those are my thoughts on whether the Spartans could beat the Romans. Next question I'm going to engage in is this can be applied to many other concepts, but because you can see that he can only wink physically. This winking is defined as like when one closes and then reopens one eye. And of course, because Mike Wazowski does not possess. Does Mike Wazowski blink or wink? Uh, Now, this is a question I see often portrayed in memes or funny images from the internet and whatnot, but it can evoke a very great rational thought because it brings about the question about what we consider to be a blink or a wink, because in this 2 eyes, he could not, he cannot physically engage in blinking. And because of that, the obvious answer should be that he can only wink, right? But then what goes into a wink and what goes into a blink is what I believe really makes it a wink or a blink. You see winks are often, well, they usually do not happen naturally, and while blinks do happen naturally, our humans' eyes naturally dry up, and of course, our eyes must blink to indulge it in the liquids produced by our eyes to our bodies to help our eyes, and it's needed for biological progression and perseverance in this world. Blinking is needed, and Mike Wazowski, I believe, engages in it. Well, then, despite him only having one eye, because he does when he closes his eyes naturally. The meaning behind that, the context, is what matters. He does it when he does it naturally. That is a blink. He's engaging the same act we do when we close our eyes once and reopen them. He's doing the same. He is doing it because his body calls him to do it. It's needed in order for him to live. I mean, or if he wants to keep his eyes healthy, safe. And he does it instinctively. Now, when we wink, it requires it actually requires some sort of triggering, that stimulus that we need for us to do it. We want to convey a message. Eyebrow moves, some form of forehead movement or scrunching will be accomplished in the wink. Now, I believe that when Mike Wazowski winks, of course, he also engages in these physical movements. And the context of it will determine whether it's a wink or blink. For example, if he meets that Medusa lady that he was attracted to in the movie Monsters Inc., and he attempts to portray a message of attraction towards her after a subtle message by which he attempts to say that he is to someone else that we see, but we cannot do so vocally, orally, with our words. We do so with our eyes. We wink. Oftentimes when this happens, attracted to her, he does a wink. With subtlety, of course. You see his eyebrows moved slightly to the left. You see his forehead scrunch, his green skin curling in on itself. Now, that is a wink. The context of that determines that is a wink. He's attempting to convey a message. And in this message, we can tell it is a wink. Whereas, say, if he were walking and talking with his friend Sully, well known, he's the lovable blue monster that we've all come to love from the movie Monsters Inc. This monster, well, he's actually a great character himself, possesses great qualities, and he's walking and talking with Mike Wazowski. Now see Mike Wazowski's eyelid come down to meet his other eyelid, closing. We see a seal, a line between his eye. Black. He opens it. What is the context of that? It takes a moment. He was walking and talking with Sully. It was most likely a casual conversation. There was not much that could be overtly sexual or perverted here. So it's obvious that he's blinking. A natural act that happens without him wanting or making himself. So hopefully, I'll try to answer. What is influence? In world history, in civilization, in the world, in geopolitics, in all of history. What is influence? And who are the most influential people in history? Influence, of course, is very subjective. Some people take it's a blink, the natural instinctive act by which, although he's a monster, he is not deprived. So, in my opinion, Mike Wazowski does wink. But in addition, Mike Wazowski also winks. He winks and he blinks. You can determine whether he winks or blinks based on the context. That is my opinion on whether Mike Wazowski winks or blinks. So, for my next question, I will answer influence and roots in their ideas from certain people while others derive it from others. But I think we can define influence as when one's ideas or something that one conveys to another leads to something else happening. Whether it be a thought, a speech, or anything for that matter in which a thought or an idea is made vocal or put on paper. That is when influence can be seen as Isaac Newton is often known, saying that we stand on the pillars of our forefathers, and because of that, we can see that it's important that what influence is, and we can see influence in world history portrayed many times. Books, like the Bible, influence many billions of people as their religion, as their ideology, as a supplement to their thought. Uh, Books are very powerful. They hold a large amount of influence, and in world history, the Bible, the Quran, the Old Testament, the New Testament, whatever, the same thing as the Bible, of course, but they all hold great influence as books. Monastery door. It would have been ended there, except it didn't. Books in world history, and in my opinion, world history could find five very influential people in its span on human civilization, of course, not just animals, of course. In my opinion, I believe the most influential person to ever exist is Johannes Gutenberg. He's a inventor of the Gutenberg printing press, the movable type, by which messages could be conveyed and spread faster than any other time in history preceding it. This is great, of course. It led to many resounding changes in history. The Reformation would have never happened uh, without Johannes Gutenberg's printing press. Uh, when Martin Luther sat down and wrote his treatises and his theses on why he disagreed with the church and pinned it up on his course, we know it was spread through the use of the movable type, the printing press, Gutenberg's printing press. This is just one of a billion examples for which Gutenberg has left his influence on history. The many other examples. American Revolution, ideas could have not spread across the colonies without the printing press. At any time in Western or even Eastern civilization, after his invention, we could see that the messages could be spread and ideas could be moved, diffused, unlike any other time in history before that. Number two, I believe, on this list will be Jesus, the Messiah, Christ. His death led to the founding of one of the greatest and grandest religions to ever exist, Christianity, which of course split into the Orthodox and the Catholics, and after that, the many other sects, and this all came from one man's death, Jesus Christ. Not me, of course. I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Buddhist. I'm peaceful. I'm not saying Christians aren't peaceful, of course. Jesus Christ promoted very great ideas, very non-violent ideas, great ideas of justice, social equality, and promoted ideas of freedom that were very revolutionary for the oppressed peoples under Rome. And there's no doubt that he's one of the most influential people ever. Uh, so next, I believe number three on this list is Pope Urban II, man who, after the Byzantines, I think Alexius the First, called to him, sent him a message, not by the printing press. Of course, if it was sent by the printing, if the message was conveyed via the printing press, many people would know, and far faster as well. But of course, when they sent the message, the Byzantine Empire was under threat by the growing Muslim to the east, the Seljuk Turks. This led to, of course, the and billions of people follow him and his ideology. His religion. Now, even today, the Crusades, the first Crusade happening, which led to the second and the third and whatnot. But it started all with the first, with the Christians retaking the Holy Land, establishing the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and many other Crusader kingdoms, states as well. It all began with one man, Pope Urban II, declaring it a crusade against the Muslims to retake the Holy Land. And I believe if he never called for that, maybe the Seljuk Turks, could have pushed maybe all the way to Italy. They had a great military, and just like the Ottomans, had very innovative and open mind for technology, and were willing to do what it took to engage in superior tactics and military over the others. So that is why the Crusades brought the pure manpower against them, because of obviously Europe did not possess, the Europeans did not possess the adequate strategy and tactics that were needed to, or not ideological, and some are good, and some are past their time. So yeah, Pope Urban II is, in my opinion, the third most influential person in history. Number 4, I believe, number 4 on my list would most likely be, I don't know, there's lots of people. Number 4 would probably be Martin Luther. Now, Martin Luther is an interesting man, because you probably heard me say earlier that the Crusades, not the Crusades, the printing press is what made his ideas, that allowed them to spread in Europe. The Gutenberg's printing press was. And yeah, I agree with my statement, but I'm not undermining the effort and ideas that he brought upon the world to eradicate the threat that was posed to Christianity in the Seljuk Turks. That is why, if Pope Urban never called the Crusades, in my opinion, Europe would be Muslim today. We could see Muslim ideologies more frequent. Not saying Islam is bad, of course. Islam or Christianity both promote certain ideas. There are ideas, of course, and those ideas are very ideological. During the Reformation, his ideas led to the rise of Protestantism and many other Christian sects. And one more thing, they influenced Martin Luther King to of course lead the marches and campaigns that would eventually lead to Lyndon B. Johnson ending segregation in America, which is one of the biggest steps forward racial and social equality today. Uh, Other influences? Just look at Google. What's the number one religion, number one largest religion today? Yeah, it's Protestantism. That would not exist without Martin Luther. And just the amount of influence that he's had on history is undeniable. And yeah, modern day roots that we can find derive from his thoughts, his writings, his speeches. It's it's amazing. It's exceptional. My life. Why would I not? Why would I talk about Asian stuff? But I'll continue that trend now by saying my number 5 on my list is number 5 is Christopher Columbus. Yeah, it's Christopher Columbus. He sailed the ocean blue in 1492. He discovered the New World. He expanded what is Europe, European domain, European lineage. He brought white men, white women, white children to America. Just a disclosure here: I'm Asian. I'm Vietnamese, so I have no bias in my race towards Christopher Columbus. But so that trust me. Okay, so number 4 was Martin Luther, the most influential. Uh, so now for number 5, which will be my last one, is there's lots of people in history that we think I can't. So many. Uh, I would say Christopher Columbus. Number 5, Christopher Columbus. Now, okay, by now you probably think I'm very Eurocentric. Yes, that's true. Yeah, I'm Eurocentric, of course. Why? I live in America. Why would I not be Eurocentric? I've literally been engaged in European and American stuff. All his discoveries of the New World brought massive wealth towards the European European lands, uh, and because of that wealth that he brought, it brought the trade, the what do you call it, the trade powers, the what we consider to be powers to trade into Europe. The slaves, gold, sugar, cotton.